Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, talking Lakers in this one. Beat the Pacers yesterday, 145-150. Happy about that win. Very happy about that win. Well, I think we're in a good space right now. We're in the 10th, 9th spot. 2.5 games above 10th. Golden State Warriors are back there. The Houston Rockets are quickly approaching. And right now, we're just hopeful that our team can go on this road trip and have some success, man. Got the Milwaukee Bucks coming up right now. We're going to be facing them, I believe, either tomorrow or the day after that. It's probably about 4:30, around 4:30, 4 o'clock. I think it's going to be the game in Milwaukee. And if you're not ready for Giannis, you know it's going to be a problem. That's really what it comes down to. Dame Lillard is also there, and you know he's going to probably try to have a good game against a California team since he's a California boy. We know that. But ultimately, it's about Giannis, and it's about our ability to defend him and keep up with his scoring. And so that's really what it is. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a back-to-back right after that in Memphis, the first of 2 meetings against Memphis in the last 12 games of the season. And we're going to be seeing them, I think, the third to last game of the season. We got to go to Memphis for both of those games. Very strange scheduling here. Still got a couple back-to-backs to go, and it's only 12 games left. That's just bizarre if you ask me, but you know, it's what the Lakers are dealing with as a unit. So we just got to take the schedule we're given. Now, the one thing I want to say is, been listening to some people talk about the team this morning. There seems to be just good numbers showing us that we play well when we have D'Lo and Dinwiddie in the starting lineup. We also play well with Dinwiddie next to Austin Reeves. Maybe not as much with Austin Reeves next to D'Lo, and that's currently how we have our team set up for our starting lineup. What I'm telling all of you guys is I'm torn between whether it makes sense with 12 games left in the season to do what the numbers tell us we should, or to move along as business as usual and just continue to structure it so that we have those guys in lineups with one another throughout the course of the game. Conventional wisdom tells me you probably don't want to make too many changes to your starting lineup, since starting lineup has had so many problems with the changes that have been made throughout the course of the season. But if something is an improvement, a clear-cut improvement, maybe this is when you make that exception and make the decision to do that. Now, I'm of the mindset that when Vanderbilt comes back, you still bring him off the bench and leave Rui in the starting lineup for the same reason that I'm saying I'm kind of torn in regards to starting Dinwiddie. Continuity is one reason, but the other reason is just so that when you know you're using Vanderbilt in roles that specifically provide defense and rebounding, I think it's a bit more controllable when you allow him to come in off the bench, because what he is an aggressive basketball player who's going to throw his body around and likely pick up foul trouble. If you have him starting, he's much more likely to get in foul trouble out the gate. If you have him coming off the bench, you can control that into a way that makes a lot more sense for you, so that when you put him on the floor, he's able to settle into the aggressiveness of what his role would likely need to be, rather than him getting in foul trouble early. And when you couple that with Anthony Davis having a propensity to get in foul trouble early, it probably makes a lot more sense for your other best defender to not have a chance of getting in foul trouble early. So that's really where my mindset comes from when it comes to bringing Vando off of the bench when he comes back. Not to mention that his conditioning is probably not where it needs to be, given the fact that he's coming back from multiple foot, leg injuries. So that's just my thinking. I think you can control him a bit better. You can still put him on the floor for the minutes that you want to give him, but it ultimately makes a lot more sense to start Rui Hachimura, let him get off to early rhythmic starts, creating spacing for your offense, and then bring in Vando as necessary. Even if it means bringing in Vando early into the first quarter, you can control his foul trouble possibilities, his conditioning not being where it needs to be, and ultimately have more of an aggressive Vando. If you don't have him starting with the starting unit, he's not taking away spacing from the other guys, etc. So that's really what it is. Is your spacing where you want it to be right now? Yes. We just dropped 150 points. Yes, our spacing is exactly where we want it to be. Vando's going to take away from that if you put him in that starting lineup and hurt the spacing of that unit that is scoring so very well. So that's why I think Vando still comes off the bench for me if I'm Darvin Ham. I'm not gonna create spacing issues for the sake of defensive possibilities, when if I just need that defense, I can just bring it off the bench and just bring it in whenever I want to. Spacing, however, is not as important in your second unit because you barely use your second unit to begin with. You know what I mean? So it's like we usually have a good majority of our starters playing in that second unit, as we only bring about 4 players off of our bench in rotation anyway, and we usually give them an average of 8 to 11 minutes. It's not much time being given to that bench for it to be a necessity for me to keep spacing amongst them. So for me, it's like, how am I managing Vanderbilt? Keeping him out of foul trouble, allowing him to help AD sit if necessary when AD gets in early foul trouble, and what happens if they both get in foul trouble in the same game because I've started them. Probably not something I want to have any parts of if I'm starting off with a defensive mindset, for which any lineup with Vanderbilt and AD is going to likely be about. Plus, if I'm bringing Spencer Dinwiddie into the starting lineup, I don't have as much of a need for Vanderbilt to play defense in theory, with AD and AD and Dinwiddie now being those defensive presence players in that starting lineup. So it's just a lot to say for that. I don't know how that works for continuity as it pertains to players playing with one another. A lot of these rotations have not been used based on Vanderbilt being out for a good portion of the season. Cam Reddish is also now back, so you consider that in regards to your defense versus your offensive capabilities. So it's a lot that comes with that. You don't want to go all defense most of the time with this unit because it is going to have some scoring deficiencies attached to that when you consider lineups with like Cam Reddish, Vanderbilt, AD, Dinwiddie. That may not be offensive enough for you to make it make sense for you overall. But for me, I just think that we're an offensive team right now, bringing back highly defensive players that we can control a bit better if we bring them in through the second unit. So that's really what it comes down to, is control for me. I understand the need to offset D'Lo and Austin Reeves starting lineup usage, given the fact that they're so deficient defensively. But if I'm considering putting D'Lo in the starting lineup with Dinwiddie, I may not necessarily have so much of a need to bring Vando into the starting unit. And I really do believe that we've seen our best Austin Reeves minutes come from second unit minutes off the bench. You can still give him his 30 minutes a game. He just doesn't necessarily need to be starting the games. He can be your Ginobili, so to speak, and you have more of a balance there with not only what he is that he brings to the table, but you also allow for the D'Lo, Dinwiddie fantastic plus minus to be in play to start basketball games, for which the Lakers have had issues being a bad starting basketball team, so to speak. You know what I mean? So that's really what it is, trying to find a balance for our unit, and we're seeing things that could work for us. And you also want to balance that out with the understanding that foul trouble could be a real thing when you have such aggressive defensive players starting the game at the same time next to defensively deficient offensive players who are going to be needing to play next to him. So that's really what it comes down to. I just kind of want to find some balance there, and then with finding that balance, I believe our team can be so much more efficient with what it is that we're ultimately trying to accomplish on the basketball floor. So that's really where my head is, man. I just want my team to find the balance between continuity and new discovery, because what we saw yesterday was Spencer Dinwiddie in the starting lineup be his best self, be the same Spencer Dinwiddie we remember with the Brooklyn Nets, be the same Spencer Dinwiddie we remember with the Dallas Mavericks. That's the player that you want him to be on your team, not playing a Reggie Bullock type role where he's only asked to play defense and maybe shoot a couple corner threes. Other than that, he doesn't have the ball in his hands. You're not utilizing him to be his best self until you let him play some leading guard roles, pick and roll. So get him next to AD more often. That's probably the way to go. And so that's what I want to see the Lakers do. One thing I am very happy about, extremely happy about, is LeBron James' increased three-point shooting percentage. The fact that he shoots the three ball at such a much more reliable clip makes all the difference for our basketball team. And I don't think enough has been said about that on my channel. He is so much better of a three-point shooter this year than he probably has been in any other point in his career. I don't know what he worked on in the offseason, but finding himself to be a shooter that's above 40% is unbelievable. And for us to have had so many problems with him shooting errant threes in the past couple of seasons, complaining about it, for him to now be somebody we can rely upon to give us good spacing on the floor consistently, it gives us a dynamic that we probably weren't even working into the equation. So for me, I'm very pleased with his shooting. I want him to continue to shoot at this clip, continue working on whatever habits he's developed and rearranging his shot. And if he can find himself being that type of shooter for our team going forward, it'll be much easier to build around him if he decides to resign. And that's a big deal, man. Because when you look at LeBron James in the past, a lot of what we were concerned about is the fact that he didn't shoot very well from behind the arc, but had a tendency to continue to shoot and launch threes. We haven't had that problem pretty much all season long. So I want to give him his props on his channel at this point for being as really his, I ain't going to say historically improved, but it feels like that when you consider what year he's in his career and how much better he is now than he has ever been. So yeah, give props to the king for that. So yeah, man, that's really what it is. Because he's a reliable shooter, now I can work into the equation, him not being a deficient shooter. I'm more likely to be comfortable putting Vanderbilt in the front starting lineup. I'm more comfortable putting him next to guys that may not be great shooters and expect to still have good spacing. Because he's such a fantastic improved shooter, now when you put him on the floor with Rui Hachimura, you put him on the floor with Austin Reeves and D'Lo Russell, you have such fantastic spacing of the floor, coupled with Taurean Prince, who's been a fantastic shooter all year, even though he ain't been that great at everything else. We give him credit where the spacing is provided. So that's why the Lakers were able to put up 150 points. Although, of course, Prince was not in the starting lineup yesterday, we didn't miss it because you could still count on LeBron James to be a fantastic shooter, along with Rui Hachimura chipping in, shooting over 40%, unlimited shooting, but that's fantastic percentages. And then, of course, Austin Reeves finding his three in the second half of the season. And, of course, D'Lo Russell being a fantastic shooter, even though he didn't play yesterday. So, yeah, this is one of those things where it's like, yo, it's not a coincidence that LeBron's improved shooting and the Lakers being a good offensive team go hand in hand. Those two things definitely go hand in hand. And at this point, I can count on my squad to keep up with anybody scoring the ball. We can win in multiple different ways, albeit some extremes over the last two games. When you consider our team dropped 150 in the previous game, and then against the Philadelphia 76ers prior to, we dropped 100 points, 101 points rather. These are the things that show you we can win multiple styles, and that gives you a lot of confidence in regards to what your basketball team can do in the playoffs and the play-in tournament. So that's a big deal, man. I wanted to let people know. I'm excited about that. We're excited about the Lakers being able to win in multiple ways. If you want to muck up the game, we can find a way to get the victory. If you want to run up the score and not play no defense, we can run up the score and beat you at that game. And I think that that's very impressive when you consider what our issues have been against teams like the Denver Nuggets and the Sacramento Kings. When you consider how poorly we've executed down the stretch of these basketball games against the Denver Nuggets specifically, and then you look at yesterday's matchup against the Pacers and how well we were able to keep up with the scoring and one of the best offenses in the game, that helps you understand that we are an improved offense that can improve in these key areas so long as we go with our habits that we've established over the last couple of weeks while changing our starting lineup, putting Rui in that lineup. So that's what I want to say to everybody. We've put him in that starting lineup, and as a result are a different basketball team than the team that the Denver Nuggets have last seen. And hopefully with what it is that we're able to accomplish in finding this continuity with Spencer Dinwiddie, allowing him to be himself, he can contribute even more so to the proper execution of our basketball team as a whole. So that's what I'm here to say, man. I like us offensively right now. Our defense is taking some steps back, but we are getting defensive players back into the lineup off of injury, and I believe that can help us a great deal come playoff time, play-in tournament time. So, yeah, it's a lot to like, albeit against bad defense. Obviously, the Denver Nuggets are a much better defensive team than the Indiana Pacers, to say the least. But you like the idea of being able to hit shots at a more consistent clip with the continuity of lineups starting to form. So when you have a real Spencer Dinwiddie piece that's actually himself, hit 20 points, 5 assists, shooting a good 3-point percentage, probably one of his best games all season, whether with the Lakers or not. You like the role that you can start to put him in and putting yourself in a position to feel a lot more confident about just what type of piece he can be. He gave us Dennis Schroeder production last night for those who were wondering what it is that he actually brought to the table. He brought you Dennis Schroeder. That's exactly what he brought to the table. And I, for one, am very excited about that type of production. I think that's what's been missing. We were asking for Gabe Vincent to be that player. And, of course, Gabe has been out all season. Now, I've heard someone say, and I have to disagree, that we're certain that Spencer Dinwiddie is a better player than Gabe Vincent. I'm not high on Gabe Vincent, but I don't think I've seen anything in purple and gold that allows me to understand who Gabe Vincent can be in this uniform. You see him in the preseason, that's not going to really tell you much of anything. What he shoot 5% from the three? That's not who we expect Gabe Vincent to be going forward. So I want to be fair to Gabe and tell people that there's no way to really know if he's actually better than Spencer Dinwiddie in our uniform because we ain't seen him. But what I can say is I expect a lot more from Dinwiddie just off the strength of his conditioning. He's healthier. He's not coming off a knee surgery. So that makes a difference for me. But one thing's for certain, Dinwiddie's on for just this year, and he should probably be up for a free agency coming up right now. Vincent is somebody we're going to have to see come back from that knee injury in our uniform, and I'm not overly thrilled about that possibility, unfortunately. But maybe we can move him. Maybe it'll be in the best interest of the team to get him in shape and then move him in the offseason. So that's what would be ideal to me. And then we could re-sign Spencer Dinwiddie and just ask him to be who he's been for us. So, when you talk about the changes that you can make in the offseason, roles change, needs change. You could add a few players and suddenly don't need the same things from the players you have now. So it's not really a way of knowing what's best for the team at this point for next season. But I can tell you that if Dinwiddie continues to play like this for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks for the rest of the season, we're going to feel a lot better about him overall. The league sentiment about him is going to be so much better. So that's what it is, man. Just wanted to kind of put that out there and let people know what I think about that. On this road trip, we got some very bad teams, so we're going to see in their building. Quite honestly, the Washington Wizards, we expect to beat. The Brooklyn Nets, I'd hope to beat, even though we've had struggles with the Nets as of late. Toronto Raptors are completely tanking. They're like a multi-game losing streak at the moment. I'd imagine that they want to continue to lose to give themselves the best possible chance at a good first round pick rather. And so I think we can get a win there. What else? The Memphis Grizzlies are a tanking basketball club, although they did get Desmond Bane back very recently. I do not expect for them to continue to win right now. So maybe we can get a victory there as well, maybe even two, since we see them once again, as I've already mentioned. So yeah, man, there's opportunities here. There's opportunities for the Lakers to climb into maybe the 8th spot, maybe even squeeze into the 7th spot. And if they win all the way out, maybe squeeze into the 6th spot. For what it's worth, we're 11 games behind first place. So with 12 games left, if everybody loses every game and we win all of our games, we could actually have a chance at something ridiculous. But you don't see that very often. You don't expect it right now. But nevertheless, this is the incentive that the Lakers should have to try to continue to win basketball games, regardless of how you win them or what way you win those games. Just make sure that victories are credited to your team. And so if we got to win by 150 to 145, cool. If we win 101 to 89, cool. Whatever it takes. Just make sure that you're the ones on the right side of these games, man. So that's what I want to say about our squad. Very pleased with what I've seen over the last couple games, albeit against not so great teams. Philadelphia without Joel is not a good team. The Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young is not a good team. And the Indiana Pacers play the worst defense of anybody in the league, if you ask me. So that tells you that you haven't had trouble, but you have taken care of business. And that stands for something that means something. Especially when you consider teams like Sacramento losing to Wizards and Golden State dropping games as they have. It just puts you in a position to feel a lot more confident. Now, I listened to Trevor Lane this morning say something that I did not agree with, and I want to bring it up. He said if he had a choice, he would rather the Sacramento Kings lose games and pull backwards. But to me, that works against us as a team who would rather not face the Kings. So I don't know. I didn't know if I was listening to him right. Maybe I got that wrong. But for me, I'm rooting for the Kings to win basketball games because if they move up, they move further away from us. Because we're going to be in the bottom half of the playoff picture regardless of how well we do in theory. So if they move up to the 4th spot, maybe if you get the 5 spot, you feel bad about it in regards to having to see them. Other than that, the only way they can hurt us is if we're in a one or done situation with them. You understand what I'm saying? And the way that happens is if they lose basketball games, pull back into the play-in tournaments to which we would have to be, in theory, be forced to face them. So I don't really understand that we should want the Sacramento Kings to win basketball games if you want to avoid them, because you ain't going to have to see them in the first round no matter how high they reach. But if they pull back, you can be in a one-and-done situation with them likely having home court advantage. So for those of us who don't believe we can beat the Sacramento Kings, you want them to win. You want them to win as much as they can to get furthest away from you as possible. And if you happen to end up with the 7th seed and they end up with the 8th seed, you don't see them. If they happen to end up with the 6th seed and you end up with the 7th seed, you don't see them. You see what I'm saying? So that is ideal to me. I do not want to face a team that I have trouble beating. I don't want to see the Denver Nuggets, and I definitely don't want to see the Sacramento Kings. So both of those teams, the best way to move forward for the Lakers is to avoid them. And when it comes to the Kings, you want them to win in order to avoid them. If I had a choice to see in the play-in tournament, I don't really know, man. I don't really love any of these matchups with the Lakers, to be honest with you. The Rockets are a team that's playing with a lot of confidence and beating everybody in front of them. I would much rather not have to be forced to see them, really. The Golden State Warriors we've had trouble with, even though we won that double overtime game, so it looks as if we haven't had trouble with them. The reality is we've only beaten them handily in one of those games, and they've beaten us in the other, and in double overtime games we'll be seeing with one more matchup against them at the end of the season. The Dallas Mavericks, we had success against them early in the season, but they've beat us handily since. So that concerns me in a sense that if we have to see them in the play-in tournament, some of the things that worked for them could potentially work for them going forward. And like I said in the previous video, seeing Kyrie Irving in a one-and-done situation is not ideal for any Laker fan, in my opinion. I don't think it's a great idea to welcome facing him and Luka the Don. I really don't. And the Phoenix Suns, I just think they're going to magically become healthy right now. Now, they could fall all the way out of the tournament. If I was a betting man, I would say that they're in the worst position to fall all the way out of the tournament based on their strength of schedule. The Rockets probably make it. The Golden State Warriors have an easy schedule, so they'll probably make it, even though it looks kind of crazy for them right now. I think we'll make it if we continue to play the way we're playing. It's the Suns that I think could fall from where they're at all the way out because of how difficult the schedule potentially looks for them. But if for some reason they're in the play-in tournament, seeing them scares me to a degree because I know that all three of those guys pose a type of threat that we haven't seen when facing the Suns all 5 of the times that we've seen them, including the in-season tournament. So while we've had success against the Suns, we also lost to them in a very embarrassing way the last time we saw them. And when they ran Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, I believe it was, Bradley Beal went for like 37 against us, a season high. So we've had trouble with the Suns in some very key ways, and I don't think we should be just welcoming them into our situation in a one-and-done circumstance. I think that's not very wise either. So, to answer your question, there is no good choice. Probably the Rockets, honestly. Probably the Rockets because of their lack of experience. But when you consider how well they're playing right now, they're beating everybody in front of them. They're arguably the hottest team in basketball. So do you want to see any of these play-in tournament teams? You probably don't. I think the good news is they don't want to see you either. So you just got to go in confident. That's really what it comes down to. So that's what I want to say, man. I hope everybody's enjoying this video. Just wanted to come here and give you guys what I had. Obviously, the Kobe minute's coming up, so I want to salute that early. And just tell you guys that he never ran from many opponents. Mindset was half the battle, preparation and matchups was the other. And, if we take care of all three and try to avoid what it is that we've proven to not be matching up well with, I think we could look into a good path. But at some point in time, we're going to have to face a team that we're not expected to beat. That's what it really comes down to. That's what I just expressed to you. And so, in doing so, it would be ever so wise to have your lineups and your game plan already in place. And so that's what I want our coach to be doing right now is homework on all these teams that we could potentially be seeing. Don't exclude nobody. Have plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G for each and every one of these units. And hopefully with that being in place, we'll be as prepared as we need to be to face all of these guys. So that's pretty much what I got to say. Hope everybody enjoys the Bucks game coming up whenever it is. I gotta check, but I know it's within the next couple of days. So yeah, enjoy that. And thank you all for watching BDF 44. And I'm out.